today's episode, we'll be covering the story of how a Malaysian financier by the name of JoJo actually swindled an entire Malaysian government fund of $4.5 billion with the help of some corrupt government officials in what is probably the biggest kleptocracy case ever recorded to date.
Yeah,
This is just an insane story. Omar, do you want to get started?
yeah, definitely. Okay, so the person we're going to be talking about today is Jolo. Who is Jolo? Jolo is basically someone who was born in Malaysia, grew up in Malaysia, was born in a relatively rich family, but not wealthy. They were rich, but not wealthy. And fast forwarding, he went to like a really exclusive boarding school in England, in London, called Harrow School, where he met like basically like super rich people. He met the stepson of a prime minister, like a future prime minister in Malaysia at that time. He met Kuwaitis and Saudi, like Suyus and all that from Saudi Arabia and all that. And kind of using his family, not wealth, but money, he was able to go to that Harrow School. We know the tuition is high there, right? But
Yeah, man. It's like more than my college tuition to go to this high school. It's
yeah,
absolutely
bro.
crazy.
Yeah, so he went there. They paid a lot of money for it. He goes there, then moving forward, went to Warden, where he built this image around himself with like crazy parties and connections. So Jolo had the ability and had the skills to meet people, be the highlight of the party every time. So like there's like many examples, but the one that I would like to use here, which was like crazy, is the boat story. So he knew a friend of his from Warden who his family owned a yacht, right? So Jolo had the idea of throwing a party on his friend's yacht.
It was actually
And
his dad's friends. Yeah, that's
yeah,
what it
his
was.
dad's friends. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And he asked for it. His friend was like, yeah, sure, you can have it. What he does, he goes and changes all the pictures on the yacht to like change them to his family and like his pictures to show as if it's his.
Yeah.
And like he threw this like massive party there, and everyone thought like that this guy's like filthy rich, like they're wealthy. His family is doing something. They're running Malaysia. So he got people's attention. But moving, it gets even crazier.
No, but I think I really think that just that goes to show what kind of person he is, right? Like
Yeah.
and honestly, like we all have this kind of inside of us where we need kind of that attention, that validation from people. And I think his like in his mind, he just needed validation from everyone that this guy was
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
And obviously,
yeah. Which is
like
not a good thing.
even if he didn't have the looks for it or whatever, he was like, I'm gonna have the money, and money really talks, and that's we're gonna see that throughout
Yeah,
this episode.
reflect. Yeah, 100%. So after Warden, he leveraged a lot of his connection and made like many early business deals in Malaysia. And in pre 2008, he primarily was considered to be a deal broker, funneling Middle Eastern money into Malaysia and Malaysian and Chinese projects. So the best example here, he helped a Kuwaiti bank purchase like a high rise complex called the Oval. And this complex is considered to be one of the main places to visit when visiting the area. And he also formed an investment group that included like a Malaysian prince, a Kuwaiti sheikh, and a friend from the UAE. And that friend from the UAE, he went to become like an ambassador to the US and Mexico. So Jolo was like good at recruiting, crazy at good at recruiting. So as we can see
Yeah.
here, he had like was good at getting people's attention, but he had like a network like in a business side of him, a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
unique side business side.
Yeah.
To
And,
him.
and I think it's important to point out like he was smart, right?
Yeah,
Like he didn't get there just through these connections, right? Like
exactly.
even
Yeah,
during his time in college, they interviewed a lot of professors. And this book called The $1 Billion Whale, which is a great book that you should all read if you're more interested in this. A lot of his professors were like he was a very excellent student, excelled in
yeah,
math, and so to even pull off a lot of these, complex financial deals,
You
you
need to
have to
have
be
those.
smart, right? Like
Exactly.
you have
Yeah,
to have the knowledge.
I do
So
agree.
I do give him credit, especially in the beginning, how he was able to leverage his connections and put these deals together. He just made a name for himself, right? Like bringing in
Yeah.
money into a third world country like Malaysia, that had a high price to it, and
I
I think
mean,
it benefited him a lot.
mainly more than all that, also like when you're dealing with high caliber people at that scale,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's no way they'll trust you with their money by just you being a friend.
yeah.
They will like you. They would invite you to their parties. They will invite you to their birthday parties. They
Mhm.
would let you borrow their yacht, jets, whatever. But they will never trust you with their wealth.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
Well, here he
unless
was
he
proving his trust, right?
exactly he
Yeah, yeah.
did. He
I
did.
agree.
Yeah.
So okay, so then this begs the question, right? Like, so Joe Low is kind of this rising star in the Malaysian financial scene in terms of
Mhm.
putting together a lot of high profile deals, real estate deals, power plant deals, things like that.
Yeah.
With pairing a lot of Middle Eastern and Chinese money. So how does he tie into OneMDB? And I think it's important that we just take a step back here and talk about what OneMDB is.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and and because it's really important to understand, right? Like how was he able to take all this money and along with the Prime Minister of Malaysia at the time and others. Essentially, what OneMDB was, it was a government fund, and these government funds are known as sovereign wealth funds. And it was a sovereign wealth fund started by oil revenues, kind of collected by the Malaysian states.
Mhm.
So, what is a sovereign wealth fund, right? Like sovereign wealth funds, right? It's just a way for governments to make investments on behalf of the revenues that they collect, right? So you see this a lot in like Petro states, a lot of states that rely heavily on oil. You obviously you've heard about Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Norway, even China has a pretty big one now, and it's really a way to diversify investments and generate, and I emphasize this a lot, safe returns. So these large funds are going to invest in very safe projects that'll guarantee the diversification of the government's money.
Yeah.
Recently, though, it's been kind of crazy, right? Like if you
Yeah.
talk about like the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, they've started to act like venture capital funds. And honestly, like
Yeah.
maybe this is a whole nother episode talking about the
But
evolution of sovereign wealth funds. But
mhm.
like, right, the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, they bought Manchester City. Like the
Yeah.
Saudi Arabian Investment Authority bought Newcastle United. So like
Mhm.
buying high risk assets like football teams
That's
is definitely an indication of where this is going. And
yeah.
OneMDB was kind of acting in the same way. We will see in some of the deals that they make that they were not playing safe with these funds, that they were taking on a lot of
I
risk.
I 100% agree. But like I think for our listeners that would like think like why would a big country like need a sovereign wealth fund? But I'll put in perspective. For some countries in the Middle East and in African countries,
Mm-hmm.
98% of their GDP comes from oil.
Yeah.
So you got to understand that if oil goes down, the country is basically not surviving.
Yeah.
That's why they heavily rely in such programs.
Yeah. Because they're like, if oil goes down the drain, right, in 10, 20, 30 years, what are we
Yeah,
going to do? Right. So
exactly.
that's essentially what these funds are meant to do, is meant
Yeah.
to diversify that revenue cycle. So, okay. So
Mm.
OneMDB was officially launched in 2009. What I will say is Najib Razak comes into play here. And Najib Razak
Yeah.
is kind of a career politician. He grew up as his dad was an important member of parliament within Malaysia. So he grew up within the Malaysian political system. And at this point in time, he's running for prime minister.
Yeah.
And he uses OneMDB as his big platform to kind of bring the Malaysian economy to the forefront of Southeast Asia. He said, this is the program that's going to help our economy grow and drive kind of foreign direct investment, which is what Malaysia had been historically struggling with. And he ends up winning the election in 2009, right? So as soon as he gets elected, he's like, all right, I'm going to get to work and I'm going to start this OneMDB fund. So the
Yeah.
fund was officially launched in '09. I will bring this up just because he does play an important role later. His stepson Riza Aziz plays a very
Yeah.
important role here in helping his
Yeah.
dad, his stepfather, kind of launch this fund and set up what is to come. The PM
Yeah.
himself appoints himself as chairman of the board. So later on, he's going to act dumb. He's going to be like, "Oh, like I didn't know what was going on." But at
Yeah.
the very start of this, he says, "I am chairman of the board. Every decision kind of goes through me."
Yep.
So what does OneMDB do, right? So like I said, usually they invest in very safe assets, right, across a number of industries. The first major red flag was a very early venture that OneMDB started, not even a year after it was established.
Mhm.
And this is the first time we see Joe Low get heavily involved in OneMDB affairs, because at this point in time, he's not even listed as an employee. Sometimes he's mentioned on like papers as like a consultant, but he has no official links with
Official.
OneMDB at this point.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
So at
true.
this point in time, OneMDB has been established. They've gotten money for the government has already had, and they're getting ready to invest in projects.
Mhm.
The first major red flag is the first project that they invest in, which is never a good start. Like these
Yeah.
guys, the first project they do is let's just get into it. The first project is a joint venture that they do with the Saudi prince. The Saudi prince's name is Tariq Obeid, and it's widely believed that Joe Low introduced OneMDB officials to the Saudi prince. So we can tell that already he's kind of in the background orchestrating these deals. So they end up investing about $1 billion into a joint venture with this company called Saudi Petro, which is headed by Tariq Obeid. And it's meant to explore these natural gas resources in like Argentina and Venezuela and like other areas around the world. Fast forward like a year later, apparently like the company didn't do anything. They didn't make any investments.
Yeah.
The money just kind of sat there. And the fund was
Malaysia is
like,
like, screw this.
yeah, Malaysia's like, all right, we put
Yeah.
$1 billion into this. Like, you guys have done nothing for it in a year. Like, I want the
Yeah.
money back.
Yep.
And then Petro said he was like, okay, that's fine. We can dissolve the joint venture. They send the money back. But what happens next is very interesting. $700 million worth of that money is then rerouted, instead of going back to OneMDB accounts, to an alleged Petro Saudi subsidiary called Goodstar Inc. And this account is based in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
After the
There's
money
no
goes
way.
there, the trail literally goes cold. No public records have been released as to what happened to the money after it went to those Cayman Island accounts. What is known, though, is this Goodstar Inc. bank account is not actually owned by Petro Saudi, and it came out years later that it's owned by Joe Low.
By JoJo, the
The
man, the
man
myth, the
himself
legend.
owned this money
Yeah.
this account that now has $700 million, and later $300 million more get routed to this exact account.
Exactly.
So
I got a question for you here, Zane.
yeah.
Do you think that was planned? For the reason I'm saying this is because how would the government like a government like Malaysia would
Mhm.
invest money in an oil company in Saudi Arabia, and a year later nothing happens, and they just were like, we want the money back? Do you think that was planned, or there is something
Oh,
behind
it, that
behind it?
had to be it. That had
Okay,
to be
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Because
because
like my thing
there's
is
no
like, first of
way.
all, you're setting this up with oil money with the intention of diversifying your
That's
revenue, right?
funny.
Why would
Exactly.
you invest it in another oil project? That does not make sense to me.
That's the second red flag, because we're talking about here. So Najib Razak was also the minister of finance before becoming the prime minister.
Yeah. Before becoming
And
president.
exactly, and Jolo, he like had like small business deals, and like he has experience in finance and business. So
Yeah.
these two guys are not stupid. And there's no way they'll go 1 year with nothing happening unless they were taking like a long vacation. There's a
Yeah.
year long, and they came back. They're like, oh, nothing's happening, so we want our $1 billion back. So so yeah,
Well,
that's
what I
my
think
perspective.
what I think this alludes to is that it is known that majority of the investment committee
Yeah,
that was on the OneMDB team were
yeah,
government officials that were also
yeah.
in on this. So essentially, almost the entire team that was behind OneMDB was corrupt to the core, right? Where they were taking payments from Jolo and from the prime
Jolo.
minister from the
Right.
money that was stolen, essentially, right? So there weren't enough checks and balances in place. That's the first kind of rule of thumb here that we should
Mhm.
understand, that this did
Yeah.
not have enough checks and balances, and it goes all the way up to the prime minister. He is the one that's
Yeah.
ultimately responsible for this, right?
Got it. Got
So,
it.
anyways, Jolo was able to route the money into a bank account, which then gets sent into a number of different avenues that we'll get into,
Mhm.
including the prime minister's personal bank account, his
Yeah.
own hedge fund and private equity firm called Ginwell Capital. We'll
Yeah.
see all the stuff that he does with that later on,
Yeah.
as well as some other ventures that have some questionable returns, to say the least.
Absolutely.
So at this point in time, right, OneMDB does his first deal and a bunch of money is lost, right? But no one really knows about it, right? Because no one's really checking in OneMDB. There's no like
Mhm.
public oversight on this right now. So no one really knows this is going on. except for the people who are directly involved with this. So at this point in time, OneMDB, Jolo and his cronies here are like, yo, this kind of worked. Like we got the money and we got out. So let's try to do this again.
Yeah.
Like, is
I
that is never my first thought. Like, let's do
know.
something like this. Like, we've stolen this much money. Let's try to do it bigger this time.
I mean, they would only think that way if they know if they play the right cards,
Yeah.
they can do it at a bigger scale, which that's what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, yeah, he was able to steal 700 million, but at the same time, like he had to have known at some point it was going to catch up to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe, which I mean, he's still on the run right now. So I guess maybe it never did catch up to him.
Yeah. I'm like, for someone, I would not call like Joel the smartest guy. For someone like with a decent IQ, anyone with a decent IQ would know that eventually it's going to catch up to me, and I better have a plan for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And
so,
and
okay.
Yeah.
Back to the story here. So this deal kind of goes bad, right? This deal was started in 2009. It goes all the way through about 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Najib Razak has a great idea of raising funds for OneMDB, which is super out of the ordinary. It's important to note this. Most sovereign wealth funds never raise outside money.
Yeah.
They're government funds, right? It's a public fund. So it was really weird, first of all, that they did this. And we'll see why, because they intended to steal most of it. But here, to actually raise the money, and what you're going to talk about right now, is they enlisted the help of none other than Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs. But that's kind of my understanding why they raised the money, is because they barely had anything left where they can make a major move or a major play where they can put on the news or at least show it to the public. So they needed to raise money in order to make the big league moves, like something that would look like Malaysia is investing in.
Yeah, almost like a Ponzi scheme, right? Like make it seem that you have a lot of money by raising money.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, Goldman gets involved. And immediately things that you mentioned start to look sketchy for OneMDB.
Yeah.
And foreign investors that were basically, they had like the prime minister had the idea of raising money for the fund. And Jolo was like, you know what? I know this guy, Tim Lesner. He's now a Knicks ex-investment banker at Goldman. He pled guilty for the scandal. And Jolo asked him, basically was like, oh, can Goldman help us raise money for OneMDB? And of course, Goldman, not of course, they said, yeah, but they evaluated and they understood everything that happened. And they knew it was kind of a game. It was going to be a scandal that can steal money. And they were like, we agree, we're going to do it. So what happens here is Goldman comes in and help the fund raise over $6.5 billion from investors around the world.
And this is in a bond sale, right?
Exactly. And this is a bond sale. And the crazy thing, when doing our research, we were trying to find who are those investors? Who are they and what happened to them after?
Like, who bought the bonds?
Exactly. I'm like, you got played. You got screwed. Like,
absolutely,
what's happening here? But fast forwarding, there was nothing. We couldn't find anything, which is like crazy to me. And basically Goldman, what looks like kind of a red flag on Goldman's side was that they usually charge 1% as like kind of, what you call like their management fees. In this, their management fees would be around like 1%. But in this case, they took 10%, which is unprecedented. And like, it showed that Goldman knew exactly what happened. And that played against them in court.
Yeah.
And they were like, for you to go from 1% to 10%, you will only do that if you know it's a scandal, you know you're guaranteed to make a shit ton of money from it.
So essentially they knew what they were selling was bullshit.
Exactly.
And they did it anyways, because they were like, we're Goldman Sachs, people are going to trust us.
Exactly.
And so they raised 6.5 billion.
And the main reason why they chose to go with Goldman is because Goldman, they have the network, they have the investors, they have the name.
Yeah.
Whatever comes and Goldman will try to sell, it will sell.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I guess it's important to say then Goldman ended up making around $650
Yeah,
million
$1 million.
from this
Yeah,
deal,
from this deal.
which went mostly into the pockets of the two partners. One, Tim
Yep.
Leisner, that you mentioned, that's already pled guilty, and then the other, Roger Ng, who I think has pled not guilty actually.
Yeah.
To he was like, oh, I don't know what was going on with this, even though he clearly did, and Goldman here is at fault.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see what they do in a little bit. But essentially, so Goldman, right? They helped them raise 6.5 billion, and this happens in like three different bond sales over 2 years. So between 2012 and 2014,
Mhm.
Goldman helps them raise money, and during this time, I think more than half of that money is actually stolen, right?
Yeah.
By in similar kind of fashion as to the Petro Saudi deal. JoJo orchestrates money movements that are just super weird and through all these Swiss and Cayman Island bank accounts in which the money
Yeah.
goes missing.
But my
So,
question is here, what happened with the laundered money?
well,
Like, what did they do with it?
we're about to answer that,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. It's just absolutely nuts what he does with it, and not just him, but also what Najib Razak does with it, what government officials in Malaysia do with it.
Yeah.
Because essentially what really happened here was, with the help of Goldman, they stole the money and they would bribe everyone that was overlooking this OneMDB project and be like,
Yeah.
just keep quiet. We'll give you some of the money that we steal. Don't say anything. And by some money, I millions and millions of dollars.
Also from what I've read, when like the scandal, like it got all exposed and everything, the journalist who was
Mhm.
working on
Mhm.
writing the article on the blog,
Yeah.
like the Malaysian government, or like you, if they want something, you better say yes to it.
Yeah.
And as a form of just them being nice and they're happy, they're making billions of dollars from this, they paid those like politicians and officials. But
Yeah.
even though they could have not paid them, and they will still have done it and kept their mouth shut.
Now,
So
honestly, that's a fair point. Maybe that would
yeah,
have played out that way. Who knows?
100%.
But okay, so what did they do with all this laundered money, right? So Jolos ends
Yeah.
up stealing between 2009 and 2015 the tune of $3 to $4 billion from the OneMDB fund in a lot of these kinds of deals. So the first thing and the first kind of place that a lot of the money goes to is his private equity firm, Ginwell Capital.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you do you know exactly how many deals Ginwell did? There were a couple of really high profile
Oh
deals
yeah, yeah,
that Ginwell.
yeah,
What
yeah.
was the one with? It was Reebok
Yeah.
they tried to
So
buy.
basically, this deal did not happen. It was an unsuccessful deal,
That's
but
crazy.
they tried to buy Reebok from Adidas for I think $2 billion.
Yeah,
If I get that right.
yeah,
But it was unsuccessful. They even went further and they merged and they try to work with Samsung
yeah,
and other partners
yeah,
and acquiring EMI.
yeah.
And
And that
also
worked.
that worked. That
Yeah,
worked. And they bought like this like massive hotel in New York
yeah.
too. So
The Park Lane Hotel for
yeah,
six
the
hundred
parking.
million dollars.
Nice. Yeah.
So essentially, he made a number of investments, right, including the EMI Publishing Group, which is world renowned, and a bunch of real estate transactions. And if you want to hear exactly what these numbers are, it's insane. So he bought a $24 million condo in the Park Laurel condominiums in New York, a $76 million penthouse in the Time Warner Center, and a $17.5 million mansion in Beverly Hills.
Oh my
He didn't
God.
buy these directly, obviously. They were bought by shell companies that were ultimately
Yeah.
controlled by him. And it can safely be assumed that all of this money came from the OneMDB fund.
Yeah.
But he didn't stop there. Riza Aziz, which is how he initially got introduced to Najib Razak and the OneMDB fund,
Yeah.
had a real thing for movies. And he was like a big movie guy, which I guess we're all kind of movie guys at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right?
But
Everyone
like
loves movies, but he
he
was like a
built
fanatic. He was like, I want
yeah.
to be like a movie maker. Like,
Yeah.
so, so what JoJo did was he siphoned some more money and was like, all right, let's start a movie production company. And so him and Reza Aziz start this company called Red Granite Pictures in 2010. And for a few years, they raised some money from what is now known as OneMDB. but they raised to the tune of like I think 100 to 200 million dollars, and they produced Wolf of Wall Street. Like, how funny is that?
That's eh, it's like it's a circle because when you watch Wolf of Wall Street, it makes what's his name? What's the
Jordan
main
Belfort.
character? Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
Jordan like looks like an angel compared to him.
Yeah.
The money that Jordan like stole, like not stole, but like lied about whatever with like
Yeah.
inside information, everything. It's considered to be peanuts, it's considered to be donation for JoJo.
Yeah.
Like his donations were probably the size of, I mean, the entire thing. So
That's what I'm
like
saying. Like he
crazy.
makes it's funny that a criminal is funding a movie about a criminal that's glorifying a
Yeah,
criminal. So
yeah,
that is kind of funny. But also like the sheer size of this theft makes the Wolf of Wall Street look so small. Like he's
yeah.
chump change compared to $4.5 billion, right? Like that's just
Shit.
crazy. So essentially, that's just one of the endeavors that him and Riza Aziz do together. And the biggest part, I think, here is it funds the extravagant lifestyles of not only JoJo, but of Najib Razak too. So Najib Razak, and I guess they spent their money in different ways, right? One of the
Yeah.
craziest things that Najib Razak did was he bought his wife a 2 carat, $27.3 million diamond necklace. Like
You know what's crazy
one
about that
necklace.
necklace is that they still cannot find it. They don't know what it is.
That's crazy. Like what?
Yeah,
I that's like more than like the net worth of like more than half the globe. Like in a necklace, bro. I don't
yeah,
know. Najib Razak had a finer taste. He like I think to the tune of almost $1 billion. He had property, jewelry, cars, jets, yachts, things like that.
Mhm.
JoJo was even worse.
Yeah,
JoJo went on to buy the most expensive yacht in the world, called the Equanimity, I think it was called,
yeah. It's
and
like
it was worth about 250 million
fish, fish money.
dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it had a crew of I think about 100 people that were always
oh,
on
no
board.
way.
Yeah,
Oh my god, that's
the
insane.
crew
I
itself
did
was
not know that.
absolutely huge. Yeah, even
Yeah.
operating this thing cost thousands of dollars a day. Like it was insane. It's like a cruise ship almost, right? He he started rubbing shoulders with Hollywood's elite, with the US elite, right? Like he dated Miranda Kerr, I think, for a little bit, which was a supermodel, which is crazy to me because the dude obviously he was a power player.
Yeah,
He
I
made
mean,
some
like,
he made some interesting gifts. Okay, so listen to these gifts that he gave during this time. And actually, what's interesting is the way they laundered money into the U.S. was pretty cool. And I do want to touch on this a little bit. They would do it mainly through artwork. So Joe Lowe would attend like a Sotheby's auction, right? And he would buy an art piece for $10 million. Okay, and then he would take that and then sell it to Riza Aziz for
yeah,
$50 million. Because it's like it's hard to value what a piece of art is worth,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he would be like, I bought it for 10 million, but in like 6 months' time, it's now valued at like 50 million.
This is NFTs, bro.
No, 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 no. Hey, come on, come on, come on.
I'm
But
joking,
really,
I'm
it's
joking.
crazy. Like he would artificially just like put
Yeah,
whatever he would want price on this and be like, this is the price now. And then they would move money together into the US by just kind of selling pieces of art to each other and artificially
it's a way
increasing
to
that
launder
price.
money.
It is,
So
it is. And I
it's a
guess
way
it
to
worked
launder
for them
money.
for a
It
little bit of
worked. Yeah,
time.
it worked. You know what's crazy about his yacht?
What?
Is Kylie Jenner threw her, I don't know what, like 19-year birthday party in his yacht.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
yeah,
We don't live in that world. So I don't know what that
yeah,
world looks like, but I guess everyone at some point just knows each other when you're rich enough and famous enough. So I guess he just kind of rubs shoulders with everyone.
yeah. I mean, like Jolo always wanted the attention. So like
Yeah.
we've talked about
Yeah.
that, like in how he was in college and his lifestyle partying. So
Yeah.
the average, like basically he would throw like on average mid to like low and high six figures
Hmm.
at like a random party, throwing a
That's
party.
just crazy.
So he always
Yeah.
wanted the attention from people. But now you go get the attention of celebrities. That's next level.
Yeah.
And he successfully did that. I mean, when what's his name? With what's his name? The Hollywood actor who
Leonardo
played
DiCaprio.
Wolf. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio. When he got the Oscar, he gave a shout out to Joe Lowe. He was like, "I want to thank Joe Lowe."
Well,
or
he got nominated. He didn't win it, but he got nominated for an Oscar,
nominated?
and so
Okay, okay,
he thanked JoJo,
yeah,
and that is crazy. But what's funny, I think, is that it's the attention ultimately that
yeah,
that got him caught, right?
yeah,
That got the the government started to notice like how does this guy afford all this?
yeah.
Right, he did make friends with like Miranda Kerr and Leo, and so he gave them some interesting gifts. He gave Miranda Kerr a $2 million piano called the Grand Crystal Piano or something. And
My man
essentially,
was simping
when they
hard.
delivered it to her house, bro, it
Yeah,
didn't fit in her house. They had to build a room around it because the builder of the piano was like the
yeah,
piano is made out of like the super crazy glass or something, very tempered glass. So
yeah.
they built a whole room in her house just for this
It's-
piano.
I probably bet you she did like they don't. Oh, never mind. She plays piano. I've heard an
Yeah,
interview about her say
she
she plays
definitely
piano.
hasn't even touched that
Yeah,
piano,
yeah,
bro.
yeah,
Let's be real.
yeah. Nah,
But
shit.
that's crazy that like
But
you're just gonna
you
give
know
gifts like
what's
that.
funny? My man was simping hard. He was like, you know
He
what?
was he was simping, bro. He was simping. That ends up being the least of his worries though,
Yeah,
because
100%.
things start to take a turn, right?
Yeah,
After he even gifted like Leo a Picasso painting. He was like,
yeah,
he Picasso painting, like it was nothing.
yeah,
Anyways, things start to go south. Okay. How do they start to go south? The US starts to like make investigations into JoLo and OneMDB. And it's crazy because like you would think that the US, okay,
Go ahead. We'll cut
yeah,
out.
the US has jurisdiction everywhere. So like
Yeah,
if you're doing a deal, right, and you use the US dollar in any end of your deals or any transaction, the US
yeah,
automatically says you use US dollars, we're in on this. So
yeah,
essentially the FBI and the US start to investigate them. Interpol issues a red notice on this to be like, all right, this guy is starting to get sketchy. But the craziest blow came from within Malaysia, actually. The sheer
mhm,
amount of money missing from the fund started to raise eyebrows, and some of the members of parliament started demanding answers, and the public started asking questions. And Najib Razak could only cover it up for so long. But while he was in power, it was kind of easy for him, right? Because he would just bribe anyone looking into him.
yeah,
What really took the turn for the worse was when he lost the 2018 elections to Mahathir Mohamad, which was his rival at the time. As
yeah.
soon as he lost power, Mahathir was like, all right, we're going to start an investigation into OneMDB and you can't stop it. And this one was headed by a non-corrupt official. And a lot of the cronies that Najib Razak had put in place were dismissed. And he was indicted on 15 different money laundering charges. Um, he has been since arrested. And what's crazy to me about this was what happened was the day after he got arrested, they raided his house, his personal house.
Oh my God,
And this is what they
yeah.
found. They found
Yes.
35 bags of cash filled with 26 different currencies that totaled around $30 million. They found 25 bags of just pure gold bars. They found 272 Hermes handbags and
So bad.
423 different designer watches.
So- you know what's
Like that's
crazy,
just
Zay?
what he left behind.
It's like that's what he left behind. That's what I was about to say.
That's
What did he
crazy.
take with him? He probably
Well,
took.
he took the diamond necklace, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, other than that, that probably like that fit in his like I don't know like backpack or like his like wife's purse.
Yeah,
What?
they definitely have a front for that. That is hidden away
Yeah,
somewhere. That his wife is like, they're never gonna touch
100%.
this. But
But
it's crazy how things just started to go south. So
yeah,
he's since been arrested and he's currently on trial. Probably gonna serve a 20 to 30-year sentence.
I mean
In
it's
his
game over. It
trial,
does not matter.
oh yeah,
Once yeah, at that
he's
age,
basically
20
just
years.
because the trail kind
Yeah,
of stops, the buck stops with him, right?
yeah,
He has pinned the blame on JoLo. He was like, I didn't know what was going on. Like, bro, like he was the money guy. He handled everything, and he swindled me out of money. Like I was with
yeah,
the Malaysian people, even though he was chairman of the board. So no
yeah,
decision went without his approval. So clearly
yeah.
it's a lie. But he pins it on JoLo. So what happens to JoLo? Why don't you tell us?
I mean, so basically, Jolo right here, he was like, he's a master of negotiation. Definitely planned it ahead. So now the Malaysian government is 100% sure that Jolo is hiding in China.
Yeah.
He was last seen on like they were trying to catch him between a flight and from Hong Kong to Shenzhen, I think, something like that.
Yeah, Shenzhen.
And yeah, Shenzhen, and they saw like it did not happen. And Joe, like basically Low helped. The reason why China liked him is because he helped negotiate a number of like infrastructure
Mm.
deals
Yeah.
between China and Malaysia.
Yeah.
And that played in China's favor. And they
Uh-huh.
really liked it. And of course, and had like to return the favor, I would not call it to return the favor. China liked him and he had a lot to offer for China.
Yeah.
So, and like there was like he said that he's working with the Chinese intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows at this point? The ASEA, basically the new government wants to cancel the infrastructure project. The new Malaysian government wants to cancel it. And
They're
to
just gonna take their
basically
loss. They're gonna take their losses and be
they
like,
want, yeah, exactly. They want to take those losses.
put this behind
But
us.
that's a strategic move.
It is. It is. I agree.
So now at this point, if they do that, JoJo has no value. But knowing JoJo, he's
Oh,
definitely
I see.
doing other things. You see, like if you cancel the infrastructure deals, you're basically not bringing a lot of money. Whatever made you like, what made him fly and be protected by the Chinese government, it's not happening anymore. Those infrastructure deals will not happen. They're canceled. And but basically, the Chinese government is protecting him. A lot of negotiation. The Malaysian government, Singapore, and all that, they're not begging, but they're asking China to send them like
extradite him, right?
Exactly. And they're refusing to, they're dodging it. They got like JoJo on a long phone call. But still, the guy is obviously looks like, it sounds like that he has everything planned and he's gonna be safe for the last couple of years, I would say.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, what does his life come to? Because now he's just always on the run. He's constantly like negotiating. Because he's negotiating with Malaysia to try to get himself, to try to get himself immunity. Which so now he's basically just on the run all the time.
That's
I know there was a report that said he carries like 6 different cell phones. He's always traveling to different negotiations.
He's like from hotel to hotel. He doesn't even live like in an apartment or house. Like he goes
I'm like, what kind of lifestyle is this guy now?
Yeah. One thing I know is he definitely lost a lot of weight. With that stress, bro. Yeah, I cannot even drink water.
That's what I'm saying. Like I would do the amount of acne I would get by the amount of stress induced by something like this. Like I would not. Props to him for being able to hold himself together through all this, because I would not.
I mean,
crazy that he's still out and about. I think he should be jailed for life.
Yeah.
Like, because ultimately the Malaysian people here got screwed. Right. 100%. It's the Malaysian people that bore the brunt of this. And like, how does the Malaysian government move forward? How does the Malaysian government move forward? Like, if you're the new prime minister, like, how do you take this mess and deal with it?
Damn, that's a heavy question.
I know.
I mean, like, obviously, you got to take the loss. The good thing is that now that Goldman is paying $3.9 billion to the Malaysian government, which is good. They're getting half of their money back. It's a long way to go.
That's so
it's
funny.
Good, but it's like a major loss. I think it will be a good thing. So now the bright side of this scandal and everything that happened, which is sad, is that now like people would be more on their toes with whatever the government is doing, and they would not trust everything they would say.
Yeah.
I know definitely that's the fact for a lot of people, but now probably like almost more than 40% of those citizens are not going to trust their government. They're going to want to check it, fact check everything.
100%, just because.
Which is a good thing. Which is a good thing.
It's public goods that you're dealing with, right? Like you're just taking advantage of your power to take advantage of public goods, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
And I think this whole story just goes to show you the kind of rotten side of capitalism. You know, you have Goldman Sachs peddling bullshit bonds. You have government officials who are using public money for their own extravagant lifestyles. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you have Hollywood celebrities that are in on this. Like it's it goes full circle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And
so what do we get out of this whole story? Like what are some takeaways, I guess?
I mean, the first one, I'll say that connections are everything. The reason why JoJo was there is because of his connections. The reason why he was sitting on the OneMDB table, he was invited as a consultant, whatever they want to give whatever the title is.
Yeah, the title doesn't really matter.
He's the one who initiated the meeting with the Saudi like oil company. He's the one who did it. And he did it quick. And was not the first time that he used his network. And I 100% not the last time, especially now he's in deep shit and he's like
Yeah.
stuck in China. And yeah, like I would say that's the kind of the first.
Yeah. Connections get you far.
Yeah, connection gets you far. What would you
I
say?
also
What's
think
yours?
I also think money talks,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like as much as people like to say that like money, isn't as important as we make it seem, like the
Yeah,
way he was able to gain a lot of the respect and the adoration of people is from flaunting his wealth.
yeah,
And he created those
100%.
connections when he flaunted that wealth. So
Yeah,
I really think to a degree that money does talk in this world, and it gets you in places that you normally would be able to get.
I mean, bro, like we covered in the story, he took his gifts, his whatever, like to the next level.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Like,
giving someone a $2 million Picasso painting or a piano
yeah,
worth millions, like just
yeah,
to a friend, that's not
yeah,
normal.
yeah. That's
But
insane.
he knew,
But
like psychologically, he knew
he
what that would do
he knew
because
what he
you
was
feel
doing.
almost
He knew
indebted,
exactly
right?
what he was doing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
Because
knew what he was doing.
if you gave me something worth $5 million, I'd be like, holy shit, like I owe you something,
Yeah,
bro. Like I don't
yeah,
deserve this. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
So like
And
he knew how to
he's a smart
leverage.
guy. He knew. He
Yeah.
knew. Yeah,
Oh, he knew exactly what
hundred
he was
percent,
doing.
100%.
So,
Crazy stories.
anyways, this is the kind of the crazy story of Joe Low, Najib Razak, and the OneMDB scandal. If you want to
Yeah,
learn more, we're gonna drop some links in the description of this episode. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for so much for listening, and join us next time for more interesting business stories in 40 minutes or less.
perfect. Thank you, guys.